Hello everyone, hope you guys are good. I want to say thank you so much again for joining me on this amazing journey. For those of you who aren't privy to the prior, I used to be the artist called Cyan Maruda, and on my last post on that handle, I said I was reverting to my real name, which is Oluwaseun. And I wanted to talk a little bit about why I made that decision. My parents named me Oluwaseun, and growing up, I never quite appreciated that name because it was so popular. There was no uniqueness to it. Like, I guarantee that if your name is Seun and you walk into a room and someone calls out Seun, at least 7 people will turn around. And so that for me just downplayed the name. For the life of me, I do not know why, but I just didn't like the name Seun growing up. I always knew that I was going to be a singer as early as the age of 4 or 5. And my dad, bless his soul, when he was alive, he introduced me to music. I remember he'd ask me to write down lyrics of songs that he liked. And so that for me was my introduction to music, because I found myself connecting to it. I found myself just like getting lost in music. I importantly found myself knowing music in that if I hadn't heard a song before and I was listening to it for the first time, I would know exactly where it was going to. I would know exactly what the next melody would be, and sometimes even what the lyrics would be. Like, I knew music as early as that age. So that kind of informed why I knew I was going to be a singer. Fast forward to when I was 13, I wrote my first song in high school, under no supervision, under no, teaching. I didn't go to school for it. I just was in class one day, math class, general class for like just 3 or so, in a hall, in a big hall, bored because I didn't know what was going on in the background, and melodies were just playing in my head, and I started writing. I just put lyrics to them, and that's how I started writing music. But I started writing about love and things that I had no business writing about at that age, because what did I know about love in the worldly sense of it? I grew up listening to R&B music, and I guess that inspired or informed the kind of music I put out, an artist that I would be. At the age of 16, I came in contact with some content called The Truth About Hip Hop, which was the beginning of the revelation, I guess, for me, that I was meant to sing for God. And what that content, talks about basically is how the devil uses the music industry to recruit souls into his kingdom. We're going to talk about that on another day. Today is just talking about why I switched back to the name Oluwaseun. So I was in high school when I first started writing music at the age of 13, and I knew that I could not go by the name Seun, or I knew that I didn't want to go by the name Seun. So I sat down with a friend of mine in SS1, Asim Ukon, and we just like jumbled up my names, pulled out different letters from my names to look like Seun, sound like Seun, but not necessarily be Seun. So at first it was pronounced Seon. And then when I got into the music industry, or when I first started, mingling with people, I met an artist called Black Pharaoh, and he pronounced my name as Sion, and I just thought it was cool because it sounded like this chinko Chinese street fighting chick, tough, which was what I thought I represented, because I had a tough layer and all of that. And so I changed it from Seon to Sion. Fast forward to Boogie Down with Wizkid a couple years later. In my lyrics I said, "Sexy mama, Sion Maruda, say you wanna come to my room. You know the song if you know the song." But I was basically bragging about how I was sexy and rude. So that was how Cyan Maruda came about. Now my real name is Oluwaseun, and it took me walking with God, it took me getting closer to God to understand that He gave me that name for a reason. In the Bible, we see different examples of God changing people's names, and one example that I can remember off the top of my head is Abraham. His name was Abram, and God changed his name to Abraham, meaning father of nations. And I think that informs why most of us like to give ourselves nicknames. I don't know if it has anything to do with the fact that we don't like our names, or if it's because it's, a societal norm, it's a fad to have a nickname. I don't know anyone who doesn't have a nickname. Just a few people I've come across in my lifetime that have told me, oh, I don't have a nickname, but most of us do it. And what's funny is that we give ourselves a name. I don't understand why for the life of me, but I went through that phase, and thank God that He pulled me back. He pulled me back into understanding my identity in Him. And having that identity in Him is so much more important than anything that I ever would do in my entire life. I'm so grateful that I now realize that. And so it just made so much sense to revert to my original name, which means Thanksgiver, which means God, I thank you, which means thanks, as opposed to rude girl, sexy girl, bad girl. Like, what? Don't even know what I was thinking, but I know that it's all for God's glory. And so I wanted to share this with you guys because sometimes we live our lives, in pretense. I just read a friend's post about authenticity, and I think that informs why I'm also talking about pretense right now. Authenticity, it's so important. Like, God has our authentic identities. He's the one that knows who we are, but then we want to call ourselves different names other than what God calls us. Our ideas of authenticity lies in what we see other people do that inspires us, and so we want to do that. I think it's very important that in finding our purpose, we really cling to Him and we really understand what He's created us for, who He's created us for, who's created us to be, why He's created us, and not lean into our own understanding of why we're here. And so I hope that gives you more context as to why I changed my name. I hope that gives you more context as to finding your identity in Christ if you haven't already. And I hope it makes you appreciate who God says you are above who you think you are or who others think you are. So I thought I'd share this video again, like I said, to give you guys context and to hopefully inspire you to revert to who you really are, to your true nature, to how God sees you and who He wants you to be. So yeah, that about sums it up. So I hope that till my next video, you have a rummage through your mind, rummage through your life, and really, really understand what it is that you are called for. But most importantly, understand what God calls you, who He calls you to be. And stay blessed.